with just a little bit about Zoom. We've already seen a couple of the, we've already talked about a few Zoom suggestions. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We have our good friend Steve Cohen, who's going to do a short kind of centering exercise from his organization, Meditation for Leadership. We're going to talk about HR's role in this crisis. Then we're going to talk about managing stress and ways to manage stress for HR and for their employees. We have a number of questions that were received. We're going to try to get to as many of those as possible, and also have some of the people who have volunteered to participate and offer some of their ideas. So we'll have that discussion. Then we'll talk about what's next, and we'll close with another exercise. So the first logistics is that you're going to be muted by us unless we've called on you or you've raised your hand and have been called on. So Linda, I believe, is going to manage that process of making sure that everyone's muted. We don't want, we have 41 participants on the line right now. We obviously don't want background noise from 41 people. So Linda will manage that. You can raise your hand if you understand the technology. I see that some people like Alex Godin has his hand up. Now, I don't know if that was something I had done, but if it's not, you can unraise your hand too. But if you raise your hand, please be patient. Don't throw erasers at the teacher or do anything else to, we'll try to get to you as soon as we can. And also there's the chat's being monitored. So there have already been some responses to the chat. Slides will be available to everybody after the seminar. Plus the recording of today's forum is going to be available. So we're going to send a link out with all the slides and with the recording of the forum. So you're going to get that from us today. And if you have a question that you haven't already submitted, just put it in the chat box and we'll try to get to it. I can't guarantee we're going to get to all the questions today, to be honest with you. The last thing is you'll see, if you are monitoring slides, you will see a slide from Saturday Night Live, if I can get to it. I don't know if anybody of you saw Saturday Night Live last week, but this is a how not to conduct Zoom. It's hilarious. It's got Kate McKinnon on it, and you can see there's a photo of her in the bathroom with her laptop, and another person going in the bedroom, and all kinds of crazy stuff. So, how not to conduct Zoom would be something that we would suggest. So I'm going to now turn it over to Steve Cohen. If you, Linda, can unmute Steve, that would be appreciated, or he can do it himself. And we are going to have Steve do kind of a basic centering exercise to get started. So Steve is a colleague of mine, a friend of mine. I'm on his board, and he runs a great organization called Meditation for Leadership. He has written a great book about meditation and leadership that's going to be available to participants if you're interested, and that information will be sent in a survey at the end. So Steve, can you take it?
Sure, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So obviously these are crazy times. We need to physically distance ourselves to avoid the spread of this virus. But at the same time, we need to stay emotionally connected to ourselves and connected with our friends and family and our work colleagues. And our work colleagues and our clients and our suppliers in many ways that are very different than how we have in the past. And a daily meditation practice can make you more aware of your emotions, can make you more aware of your thoughts, can make you more aware of where you really need to connect. And you can develop that mindset through meditation of being connected to your relationships and yourself and your colleagues. So next slide. one of the things to understand is that your emotions really only last for about 45 seconds, and your thoughts often last for less than that. And what we tend to do is we tend to replay the same loop. So instead of just, feeling the emotion and letting it go, or feeling a thought process and letting it go, we attach to it, and we tend to run these loops. And some of the loops can be helpful for a period of time, but some of them, such as fear loops and anger loops, can really be quite detrimental. And look, fear is a natural human response to a threat. In this period of time that we're all going through this virus and isolation, it's human, it's natural. We're all feeling fear. We might be feeling anger about some of the impact from the virus. We might be feeling resentment. We might be feeling all kinds of different emotions. And really the key for you, and then the key for your colleagues, is to be able to be aware of those feelings and let them go. And really, next slide. Meditation is really simply a practice of being in the present moment with full attention and without judgment. And often that's just a focus on your breath. But today we're going to do an emotion focus, an emotional mindfulness focus. So what I'd like to ask you to do, just for a couple minutes, is sit up straight, put your feet on the floor, maybe close your eyes or lower your gaze. Take off your glasses if you wear glasses, because there's no need to be seeing externally during this exercise. Put your phone down if you were on your phone, and just take a few moments and just notice your breath. You don't have to change your breath for the moment. Just notice your breath. The inhale, the pause, the exhale, and the pause. Are you breathing through your nose or your mouth? Or maybe deepen your breath a little bit and try and send your attention, send your breath right into your heart space. Big chest expansion on the inhale. Let it go on the exhale. And bring into your consciousness awareness of what you are feeling. You don't have to change your feeling. Just notice what you're feeling, what you've been feeling as you take each deep inhale. And then maybe just instead of it just exhaling your breath, imagine that feeling being placed on a cloud, a light cloud, and blow out your mouth with an exhale. Blow that feeling right out. So deep inhale into your heart, observe what you're feeling on the pause, and deep exhale. After you've done that a few times, let's return to your regular breath. When you're ready, open your eyes. Back to you, Scott.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Steve is as I said, he's got a lot of materials around emotional mindfulness. I don't know about you guys, but I will tell you, fear, anxiety, and calm were the three things that came up for me. I don't know if calm is an emotion, but fear, anxiety, and calm. So I'm going to move into the presentation. Sorry, it takes the slides a minute to move. I talked a little bit before about HR's role, and I'm going to ask a couple of HR leaders maybe to share a little bit about this as well, but that we have this unique once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to step up as HR leaders. And that's really in whatever capacity you're in. If you're in transition, if you're a supplier to HR, as I am, if you're an HR leader within an organization, I mean, we're all in this together. And from what I've seen so far, you know, HR has stepped up pretty significantly. I will say it's not easy. I hear a lot of challenges that are being faced, but I will also say that there's a lot of hope and a lot of positivity going on. One of the things that I've seen that I haven't seen as much before in the past where we've had crisis is the sharing of what companies are doing with regards to COVID policies. There are a number of roundtables that I participate in where people are freely sharing their company policies around everything from furloughs to layoffs to how they're handling with stress. If people have, you know, need employee assistance programs or mental health needs. Just a ton of information is being shared around, and if you want to, we have some resources that we'll share later that will allude to those sharings. But like anything, when there's a crisis, we have a chance to either step up or to shrink back. And so this is really a test for all of us to figure out what our gifts are and how we're going to share them with other people. I have a couple of folks. One of them is Meredith Friedman. If Meredith, are you willing to share a little bit about what HR's role has been in your company? Meredith is a director of operations with CubeSmart, and her and Kathleen Larkin and others. I've seen a lot of activity around what you guys have been doing to, you know, to deal with this. Are you open to sharing a little bit about that, Meredith?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So yes, I'm Meredith Friedman. I'm currently the Director of Operations at CubeSmart. CubeSmart is a real estate investment trust company headquartered in Malvern. Our primary business is self-storage, and we have over 1,200 stores in 40 states. Previous to being the Director of Operations, I was in HR for 4.5 years at CubeSmart. So right now in my role heading up operations, I'm definitely feeling the intersection between people and process, and finding that my HR background has been invaluable as we try and navigate the landscape of COVID-19. CubeSmart is considered an essential business, so we are open in all 40 states, although we are operating under some restrictions. In terms of managing the stress, and there's been a fair amount of it because every day a new governor issues a different order or a new county, and we need to respond to it to keep our teammates and our customers safe. So to help manage the stress, definitely a lot of deep breathing exercises have been super helpful for me, as well as just tremendous gratitude that we continue to be able to offer employment to our 3,000 teammates, albeit under some very demanding circumstances. And then personally, in terms of managing the stress, I think the hard part is figuring out where the workday ends and sort of the rest of life begins, because my office is just down the hall and it's very easy to get pulled back in and just sort of stay in it all day. But I am finding that, you know, trying out new recipes, certainly staying in touch with friends over Zoom, and also doing puzzles. Puzzles are really helping because they force me to focus on just looking for that missing piece.
Thank you. Thank you, Meredith. That's really terrific, and we appreciate your sharing of your ideas. I have another HR leader on the call with us today. That is Jean Davey. Jean is the VP of HR at Edmund Optics, which is a company, very familiar company in the area. Jean, are you willing to share a little bit about your personal and professional experience with what's going on right now?
Sure. No, that would be great. So my name is Jean Davey. As Scott said, I head up HR for Edmund Optics, which is based in Barrington, New Jersey. We have about 200 employees in Barrington, and then we are about 1,000 people globally. And I head up HR for the entire organization. So we've actually been dealing with this since it started in China. We have a manufacturing facility in China. We also have manufacturing facilities in Singapore, Japan, Germany, offices in India. So we view this as a wave. And, so we've been kind of dealing with this for quite some time. And on the professional side, I think and I'm sure for every HR leader out there, you feel as I do that you're manning the pandemic hotline on a daily basis, whether it be people afraid to come to work, people whose child may have been exposed in school because a teacher in another part of the building was tested positive. So we've been dealing with all of that. And I think one of the things that I've come to accept, and I don't think it's an easy thing to accept as an HR leader that's got a lot of years of experience, is that we've never dealt with this before. Nobody has a playbook. We have never, I don't remember the HIV crisis and sort of the paranoia about HIV and infection in the workplace. I wasn't around then. But that's how it feels. And I think for all of us in HR, we're getting asked questions that we've never been asked. And we've been asked to get involved in people's personal lives and their personal situations to an extent that we've never felt involved. And I think for us it's hard. And I think for those of us, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what's hard, and then I'm going to talk about kind of what we've been doing is we've been doing a lot more connecting with our colleagues, and it's making our days longer. But at the end of it, I think it's making them better. It's giving people a place to go. It's giving people, everyone is not responding the same. Our single people that have always worked remote are responding very differently than a family that is two working parents and school-age children. So I think we're seeing a lot of different responses, and people want to connect. They want to also hear that it's okay. So I think stress management for us as leaders is taking some of the angst away from our employees by being clear in our communications, being intentional about sharing and being open. Our CEO is doing weekly videos, just simple weekly, not even 5 minutes, saying, we're doing really well. We're sending out 2 emails a week. And again, this isn't about my personal stress. It's about our team's personal stress. And we've been sending out every Friday what we call resource emails. And they're a collection of emails, whether they're about self-care, whether they're about exercising at home, all the various virtual tours you can do of the Frank Lloyd Wright property or the Barnes Museum. We've been just collecting ideas, and we send them out every Friday just to help our team know that we're thinking about them, and we're thinking about them as family members, as now they're homeschoolers, things like that. And we've been encouraging our team's philanthropy. We have some groups that want to make masks. Okay, great. We have 3D printers. Great. Do it. We're still operating. We're an essential business. So we've been really trying to help people. What we have found, and one of our core values, is that we are one family. So we have really been encouraging our employees globally, be one family, help each other, help your communities, and we'll support you doing it. So I think professionally for me as an HR person, it's about also helping our organization and helping our employees. On a personal note, I completely agree. Finding ways to connect with people, Zoom meetings and Zoom happy hours. We've been doing that and connecting in a way. I never thought about getting all 5 of my siblings on a call where we could see each other face to face. And it was the greatest 2 hours. And it was like, why have we never done this before? I think that that's important. I think also creating joy is one of the things that is most meaningful to me. And it's simple things. It's finding out, and this is my own personal experience, finding out last weekend that this amazing tulip farm out in Imlaystown, New Jersey, was doing social distancing, buy some tulips, drive up, open your trunk, they put the tulips in your trunk. I played the Easter Bunny and I delivered tulips to people's front doorsteps that were normally coming to my house for brunch on Sunday. And it just felt like a way that I could say, I miss not being able to have you all for Easter Sunday brunch, but I'm bringing you some flowers. And just driving out to that tulip field and helping a small business was really meaningful to me. And it helps me think about the good things, and it helped me be a family member in a totally different way. I think for all of us, we all joke about, we're all binging on television series, and we all have those ways of coping too. Some of us exercise, some of us work in the kitchen and binge on TV shows. So I hope you found this helpful in terms of my input. And Scott, I'd certainly be able to answer any specific questions if you had any.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you so much. We are going to move on to a little bit about fear, because it is something that can help us survive, but it can also be contagious in a good way and not a good way. So we've seen examples of what we call good rational responses to fear: washing our hands, social distancing, stocking up. Those are all healthy things. But there's also irrational behaviors. You've seen the hoarding of toilet paper, watching the news 24/7, buying unproven home remedies, fighting, all the different kind of tests that are coming out right now. So, everyone responds differently to fear, but I think it's important as HR professionals that we have our antenna up about how we're dealing with fear, and also how our stakeholders are doing it, whether it's our leadership team. So just a quick example, I was speaking with a senior HR leader the other day who basically used the word that the HR team was pressing too much. And what he meant was that they were just they wouldn't stop sort of checking in with employees, and it was sort of, they were overdoing it. And he finally had to tell them, you guys need to back off some. So there's this idea that if we just keep throwing webinars and all this other stuff at people, that's what they want. That's not always what they want. Some people just need some peace and quiet, and they need, not to be checked on constantly. I've had a few friends that said, look, if I want to connect with you, I will, I'm okay. I don't need you to sort of constantly be checking in. So there's sort of like a back and forth flip side, to people's, pressing too hard, but giving people the resources that they need. So just something to keep in mind as you go about your, your life as an HR professional. The next thing I'm going to touch on, and I'm going to ask a few more people to weigh in, is sort of what I'll call stress management 101. And as soon as I can move the slide forward, I will do that. So there's some kind of a delay. All right, well, as I'm doing it, I'm going to just talk a little bit about my personal experience so far. Has it's been tough. I have worked virtually for a long time, so that's not the big deal for me. But from a work point of view, well, one, our business has slowed down some, so that's an impact, as has have many other businesses have also slowed down. And there have been just, times of balancing that fear, that anxiety with, when are things going to start changing? When are there going to be, it's sort of the unknown, I guess for me, it's been the fear of the unknown. Things that are important for me are getting enough sleep, making sure I'm exercising, making sure I'm eating healthy. Those are really important. Managing outside news, and then just being positive. Words are very powerful. So I want to ask my friend Stan Sherman if you're willing to jump in, and I want to ask you a few questions. Stan owns a consulting firm, management consulting firm, and he works with a lot of business leaders. And he has some suggestions. Stan, are you willing to talk a little bit about starting with personal?
I certainly am, Scott. Thank you, and hello to everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you, Stan. So it's all yours.
Okay, good. So, yeah, Scott asked me to put together some thoughts, which I've done first on a personal level, and for the time being, we'll stick with those. The first thing is to create a routine for yourself, or routines throughout the week. I think it's key to our sanity. Know that we're going to get up and walk in the morning, meditate in the afternoon, but there's some type of consistency throughout our day. A theme we've heard is certainly take care of yourself. And the model that we offer is PIES, P-I-E-S. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself, personally, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. Or I'm sorry, physically would probably be best. Physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. Do something across the touch points throughout the week and integrate them into your routine. Create a circle of support. We're hearing a lot about connection. I also think there's a part of companionship. And perhaps that's not family or business, but people that you could really open up with, be completely honest, heard, witnessed by, to make sure that you're getting things off your chest in a very confidential way. So again, create some type of circle of support. Encouraging leaders to really be honest with themselves, or with your circle of support. It's okay to have a bad day. If you have a bad day, go with it. We can't always be up every single day. And in your role as HR leaders, there's a lot on your back. There's a lot that you're experiencing. Scott named it too, stop or at least reduce looking at the news, and step away from that. And then finally, find something during the week to share a laugh about. Whether it's a good joke, the Saturday Night Live skit, but I think to just let us fall into some humor and laugh a bit with people is just an important and uplifting part. So there's some key points for you, Scott.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Stan. It's good to hear from you.
Thank you.
This company is called Propel Consulting. They do a great job in terms of leadership development. So continuing on, just a few more things. I want to talk about, Steve Cohen alluded to meditation. I know a lot of people think things like affirmations are hokey, but it is important, the language that we use to talk to ourselves and to sort of, like, this too shall pass. I hear that a lot. It's true, but sometimes it doesn't feel that way. It feels like it's going to just go on forever, but it will pass. Having social connections while social distancing is important. Getting out into fresh air and nature. I'm trying to get out every day for about an hour with my mask and my gloves and take a walk. I live in Center City, Philadelphia. It's a bit of a ghost town here, but if you walk the right path, Schuylkill Banks and so forth, there's ways to get some exercise. So that's been good. All these Zoom events that people have been talking about. And then the last thing I'll say is staying away from toxic people. Again, I don't know about you guys, but, not to get into the in-laws and the outlaws and, but I just need to be around people who are positive. I'm not saying people aren't going to be struggling. There are struggling people, but it's different than what I will call a toxic person who's really, kind of negative and dragging not only themselves down, but dragging you down. I think it's important to set some healthy boundaries around that. You know, one of the groups that I don't want to ignore in this conversation are the people that are in transition, because I talk to a lot of people every day who were either already in transition when this started or now are in transition. And we're talking about, you know, leaders and blockers and tacklers at all levels of HR. I mean, it has hit the HR community very hard. One of the people that I've worked with and we've worked together to try and help her is Michele Mcdonald. And Michele, if you're on the line, are you willing to just say a little bit about what your experience has been like during this crisis with your transition? And I think you mentioned some things about your husband as well.
Sure, absolutely. So just to give you some quick background, I left my full-time role in June. My company was moving out of state and took a 6-month stint, which ended in December. And I wasn't worried because, you know, the economy was still fairly good. I have 2 small clients on my own who were both impacted by COVID, and they're both closed for now. So professionally, I think for me right now, I'm focused on continuing learning and really paying it forward. I know a lot of people in the HR industry that have been impacted. So I've been making a lot of introductions with my network, and really talking to a lot of former employees that are just so upset and scared. They just need somebody, you know, to be a good listener. So I think for me professionally, it's, you know, being focused on staying engaged. I sit on a board of directors for SHRM, for SEPA SHRM, and right now I'm working with 12 students from Penn State on 2 projects to help them in their careers. 3 of my closest friends are all over the country, but work in HR. We have weekly conference calls. So again, I think, you know, professionally, it's just staying engaged, but also being focused on finding my next role. But you have to be positive. And I'm thankful because, you know, financially, we're okay for now. But the 3rd week in March, my husband works for SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment. He was furloughed. So now we're both home. And, you know, you just really have to be kind to each other. And, you know, the same thing with the exercise. And, you know, we get out every day with our dog and just really being focused and connected to family. I also went to Holland Farms for the tulip. So I appreciated that sentiment as well, because I think anything you can do just to be kind is really appreciated. So that's kind of, you know, my quest for right now. But, you know, I'm focused on the future. We have to get through this and, you know, and then we'll be okay, but it'll be different. And it's just really working through, you know, what's going to be next.
Thank you, Michele.
You're welcome.
Really representative of the type of attitude I think that folks who are in transition can maintain. It's hard, it's challenging. You know, we've had several of our openings have been placed on hold where companies have said, you know, we're not doing any outside hiring right now. And, you know, it's frustrating if you're in the middle of a search and you're told, you know, sorry, we're putting this on hold. That's a difficult situation. So being positive, and Michele, like you and I, again, have worked together and we've tried to, you know, to work on some positions. It's really important that we support each other and that we do our best to try and maintain that kind of connection. The next thing I'm going to point to, and then we're going to move into sort of the last section, which is the Q&A. Linda was kind enough to put together a list of resources. You'll see the list if you're not looking at the slides right now. You'll get a chance to see them. And she kind of covered a lot of ground. You know, she included meditation. She included, you know, online yoga. There's all these different workouts now that I'm sure you're all seeing online. You know, Fender is offering guitar lessons for free. There's this thing called Stay at Home Fest, which tells you about all the different things that are going on. And then, of course, if you're in distress, there are hotlines for people that are having mental health issues, whether it be, domestic violence or suicide prevention or, other ways that you can reach out to people. So those are resources that we'll send out to you. The last piece that I wanted to do is really kind of more to open it up to the rest of you who are on the line to either raise your hand and make a comment or ask a question. There were a lot of questions posed. I tried to put them in some kind of order. And again, I'm not an expert on all of these areas. I'm just kind of collecting the questions that came up. And if anybody in our audience is willing to share, I'd ask you to please raise your hand if you have either a question or if you have an opportunity to share your thoughts on these particular issues. So I'm going to just go back to looking at the participants line, and if somebody puts their hand up, I'm going to just go ahead and refer to it. But in the meantime, I'll just take some of these questions and read them out. So talked about mental wellness of employees while working remote was a question. Is about how do you keep your employees sane, basically, while they're not at work. And I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that. Please raise your hand. Nadine Flexer, are you willing to share about that, or?
No, I was just going to make a comment.
Yes,
that
please.
This experience kind of speaks to me. The company that I work for has a very large, almost, I'd say 40% of their employees are remote. And I think this experience for us who are accustomed to working in let's say a corporate office or a headquarters, we're now experiencing, I think, what a remote employee does. So, for example, our 40 persons are generally salespeople, salespersons, so they work individually in their own home, out of their own home, and feel that detached feeling of not feeling attached to the corporate headquarters or really a part of the company. I think it increases our sensitivity to, or it should increase our sensitivity to, that the type of communication that might be needed for those companies that traditionally have a remote workforce.
Thank you.
We're on the other side now. If we
are on the other side.
If you've worked at a company headquarters or in an office with other people versus that person who always works remotely,
right?
It's like we're having the same experience now.
Right. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Stan Sherman, did you have a comment? Or is your hand up from before?
Yeah. Am I off? Am I ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, good. So two ideas we floated out there. Number one, we were having two kinds of Zoom meetings, all tactical or happy hours. We're suggesting that you also schedule kind of a middle meeting where people can just get together and talk about work like they would over lunch. And the second one is we've had executives who have opened a Zoom room and let employees just come in a couple times a week. Just like I'd be walking down the hall and be able to drop in your office. They literally can just come into your Zoom, have a discussion, 5 to 6 minutes, whatever, and then check out. And it goes back to that idea of companionship over connection. So I don't know if they're valuable, but they're being used as kind of middle ground connection, like we would still be in an office.
Okay, that's really helpful. So I'm going to just mention a couple people's names. If you're comfortable speaking, speak. If you're not, it's no problem. So I see Walt Gavula's on the line. Walt, if you're there, I haven't talked to you for a while. I just wanted to say hello and see how you're doing and what you're up to and what's happening in this situation. Are you open to chatting?
Sure. Hey, Scott, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, great. No, thanks. Thanks for reaching out. Yeah, I've actually been working as a director of talent management for a consulting, tax consulting organization. And
that makes sense given your background.
and one of the, you're dealing with a group of professionals who, by nature are not necessarily open to discussion, even when they're in the office. So working remotely is certainly a challenge. A couple of things that we've recently done that we found to be really helpful is that, I think we oftentimes make assumptions that we as leaders know the answers to what employees want, but we don't always ask them exactly what they need. So one of the things we did about a week or so ago was we did a short employee pulse survey to get some perspectives from them on not only how they're feeling, but what do they need from us. And that's really been a kind of a roadmap for us to focus on the fact that everybody's getting lots and lots of emails, but it's information overload. And we feel that by doing what we've done, we're now in a position to really give employees what they feel they need, and temper how much time we spend doing some of the things that I've already heard people talking about. And we're doing all those things as well, but we, as each day goes further, we realize that what we need to do probably is different from what we did the day before. So I think it's a continuous improvement that we look at on a continuum from beginning to end. We need to shift and move as we have to. So, I think that's been helpful for us in terms of reaching out to employees to see what they need and responding to that rather than us assuming that we know what they need.
Thank you, Walt. It's good to hear from you, by the way. Thanks you for
Scott.
checking in. Another question came in that said, does anyone have any idea how to calm employee fears about being laid off? So, there's this when is it going to fall? And, does anybody have any thoughts about that or things that they can suggest? Please put your hand up. See, I see, Bill Hyman, that you have a question. Are you willing to just come on and talk a little bit about your experience and about stress?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Hey, Bill, how you doing?
Good, Scott. Thank you again for offering this to the HR community. It's very well done.
Bill's a senior HR leader, and you've been doing some consulting. And what else is going on?
I have been doing a lot of consulting. So my question, Scott, since I'm no longer, it's been about a year since I've been working full-time internal to an organization, I'm just interested for those attending, what's unique about this situation is the unknown that before an employee was working from home, they may have been sitting next to someone who may have had the virus or maybe did not have the symptoms, but certainly had it. And has that been asked of the HR attendees, the concern about, hey, what are we doing as a company to make sure that some of the employees did not have the virus? And it really revolves around to what extent are companies prepared to start testing employees when they do return back to the workforce?
Yeah, that's some of the stuff that's been going around in some of these COVID groups, by the way, that are sharing information. Probably a little bit more technical conversation than what we're trying to accomplish today. But I'll look for hands if anybody has a hand up that can address that issue, Bill. So thank you for putting it out on the table. In the meantime, while I'm waiting, I saw Ken Kramer, you had your hand up. Did you have a question or a comment or a response to something?
Yes. Hi, Scott. How are you doing?
I'm good, Ken. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, good to hear from you as well. So I wanted to just kind of chime in on the question that was posed about what do you do with the employees who have a fear of getting laid off? Unfortunately in my career, I've had to deal with this situation many times with the Dow DuPont merger that we went through, with the consulting job that I just finished at the end of last year at a company in New Jersey. And, I would just say, a couple of things. being honest with people. If you know, let them know. Let them know, it may be likely, it may be coming. We don't have the details yet, but we will keep people informed. So I just think, being honest with them, not trying to sugarcoat the situation, and just, be honest with them. But what I found in the last job that I had, where I had to help close the plant, is do whatever you can to educate them on the resources that are offered through the Department of Labor in terms of unemployment and retraining. And there's even programs available through the federal government as well. So being honest with people, being upfront, tell them, if you don't have an answer, you don't have an answer, but, and when you do have an answer, you will let them know. But just to continue to keep them working and keep them focused on what they can do. And then when that announcement is made, ensure that you're doing everything you can to provide them with the resources to kind of make that soft landing and get them thinking of the future and how they can land their next role.
Thank you. Ken, that's really helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you for jumping in and being on the call today. So we have a few more minutes. Want to give anybody sort of a last chance to weigh in. I see a couple people on the line, friendly names, Kate Williamson from ECFMG and Chris Broad. If you guys are open to sharing your sort of final thoughts on any of this, we'd appreciate it. If not, no worries. And if there's anybody else, Michael Pepe, would love to hear from you, just to weigh in the last several minutes that we have. Any of you guys open to talking for a minute or two?
So I could talk for a minute if that's okay.
Yes.
What we have done with our HR team in particular is do a daily check-in with everybody in the morning. And sometimes people will share a picture of their child. I've shared a silly picture of my dog playing Frisbee out in the yard, just to keep everybody real, keep everybody connected, and make sure that everyone is okay with this, because I think someone had referenced earlier in the presentation, sometimes we have had a few employees who have had bad days, and it's been difficult to manage we have to try to encourage them, make them feel that we are all going to get through this together, that there is support. We have spent a fair amount of time referring a few people to our employee assistance program to reach out to other individuals to see if they can help them talk through some of what they're feeling and get them some professional help, at least online.
That's great. Chris, can you identify your company also and your position in the company, just so everybody knows?
American Association for Cancer Research. I'm the Associate Director in HR.
Great. Good to hear from you, Chris.
Good to hear from you, Scott. Thank you.
Hey, Scott. This is Michael Pepe. I would say a word or so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Michael. Nice to hear from you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, and I really appreciate you hosting this venue.
No worries.
I'm a professor of practice at Penn State. I do all my work virtually, so in terms of my day-to-day routine and work, that's not changed. But ironically, because I've been doing the virtual instruction for a few years, people have been seeking out my advice for how to convert from traditional to a digital platform. But that's been more providing more support to my colleagues than I had in the past. But one of the things that might be useful for this group to hear is I do a lot of coaching of Penn State grads, either leaving graduate school and in search of a new role, or using graduate school to transition to take their next step in their career. And we've conducted a number of webinars, and one of the areas that receives the greatest amount of attention and questions, and we've addressed some of it here, I think it's going to continue to be a topic of conversation, is how has the world of networking and job search and transition changed as a result of this pandemic and as a result of a tremendous increase in the use of virtual platforms.
Big changes coming, Michael.
Yeah.
They're gonna be big.
Yes,
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know what they are, but they're gonna be big.
Right.
We need thought leaders like you to help with that. Hey, listen, I'm going to turn it back to Kate Williamson as sort of our last word from an HR leader. Kate has a head of HR position with a company called ECFMG. And Kate, do you want to just say a few things for a minute or two, and then we're going to turn it back over to Steve Cohen, and then we're gonna wrap up.
Sure, Scott. Thank you. As Scott said, I'm the head of HR for ECFMG, which I hadn't heard of either until I joined there. It's the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates. And one of the best things we have going for us is that we're headed by physicians. So we were planning for an eventual office closure well in advance of having to actually do it. So that was actually one of the best things we had going for us. We've done a lot of things. We have a Wellness Wednesday thing that goes out from my team, and it recognizes different household situations, everything from 2 working adults and young kids and not enough flat surfaces in the house to people who live by themselves and have a whole different set of challenges. So introducing that stuff to employees has helped us then create things like we have something coming up next week that's a parents webinar, and it's just for people that are in the same boat trying to deal with homeschooling their kids and keeping kids occupied, you know, having them, creating a forum for them to talk when they may not be on the same team. I do a huddle with my team 3 mornings a week. We check in with each other. It's not a big team, but we do that. Everybody's checking in with each other quite a bit. We've done happy hours. We've done cook-alongs in the early evening. But I think one of the most important things we can do and encourage our leaders to do is to reset their expectations of what it's going to look like to be productive and to be active at a time when, forget that you're working remotely and you may not be. Nothing in your life is the same, so everything is upended. We have to be a little kinder to each other and relax our expectations just a bit. You know, the work still has to get done. We still have to be professional, but we have to be a bit understanding of each other. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, remember to secure your own mask first. I think self-care, some of us are used to taking so much care of other people. It feels selfish when we worry about ourselves, but I think we have to. We really have to make sure that we're in good shape, because if we're not, there's just so much less that we can offer our folks.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Kate. Appreciate it. So we're going to turn it over to Steve Cohen to just sort of give us some final thoughts about centering, and then we'll wrap up and we'll go from there. So Steve, we'll pass it to you, and then just take a minute and pass it back to me if you don't mind.
Thank you. So, yeah, I consider meditation the ultimate form of self-care, and it really only takes 10 minutes a day, just to center yourself either at the beginning of yourself or the end of your day. And you'll be amazed at the number and the vastness of the benefits. So obviously we talked here about stress release and addressing fear and some of our emotions. Those are the things that bring people in the room. But meditation helps you build awareness, make connections, maintain perspective, and that really allows you to achieve your potential. And so at Meditation for Leadership, we have a bunch of programs. We have this 5-part leadership program that will talk about demystifying meditation, and then the 4 pillars of awareness, connection, perspective, and potential, each in the next 5 series. We have a 13-part series that goes over each of the leadership traits that you have here. We do one-on-one coaching. We have a special program that's been really popular called Staying Connected in a Time of Social Distancing that has been drawing well. We have an introductory demystifying meditation. And one of the amazing things is, you know, stress relief or this crisis might bring people in the room, but they're going to see so many other benefits. And that was one of the things, as we were talking to many of you, you're like, wow, I love this, but I don't know if I can get people in the room. And what we're finding now is that where maybe you could get 10 people in before, when we're running our virtual programs, we're getting 50 people to come in because they're really seeing the need. And as we get back to, and I have my colleague, Renee Parabati is on the phone as well. And she might follow up with some of you. We were offering, you know, the free book if fill out the survey and ask for the book, and really welcome you to get more acquainted. But I wanted to just leave you with one thing that we did in our early exercise that you can do anytime. Obviously, everyone knows a good way to take a pause is to take deep breaths, but someone else can see you taking deep breaths, right? So the key is to find a way to balance yourself when you need it and no one else can see it. And the part that I like is the part that we did in that early exercise where you just even out your breath. So don't close your eyes, don't do anything, but just try and be aware and just try and even out for a moment your inhale, the pause, your exhale, and the pause. Don't change the way you're breathing. Don't do anything but be aware that you're evening out your inhale and your pause and the exhale and the pause. And just try it in a stressful situation, whether it's at home, whether it's with a colleague, where you just feel yourself starting to lose that balance, lose that equanimity, that you just have this technique that you can just turn to anytime and help rebalance yourself, refocus yourself, bring yourself back into awareness and perspective. Thank you for allowing me to join you today.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone, for participating. We will send out the recording of today's event, and we'll also send out the slides. I want to thank Linda Casano and Larry Siegel for supporting me with the technical setup of this thing. I think it worked out pretty well, and hopefully we'll talk to you guys again soon in the near future. So thank you so much. We are saying goodbye, and please be safe and healthy and take care of yourself and your family, friends, and coworkers. Bye.